Please call the roll.
Good morning. Let the record reflect Commissioners Madison, Figueroa Villa, and Kim are present, and we have a quorum. Number one on our agenda is commission comments.
None.
None. And number two on the agenda is the report of the Chief of Police, Chief Beck.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, men and women of Los Angeles Police Department. Yesterday, I spent from 6 in the morning starting at Topanga through about 8 in the evening, ending at 77th, and I talked to hundreds of cops about the state of our city and the state of negotiations. I listened to their concerns, and I put forth the message that I'm going to put forth to you now. And that message is about respect and professionalism. Respect for each other. Thousands of you voted, some for, some against. Everybody is entitled to their opinion, from the newest probationer to the most senior person in this room. And that opinion should be valued and should be respected. We've been down this road before, and in the early 90s, I saw the organization torn apart by differences of opinion between people that were partners in radio cars. And what I want all of us to remember is this, is we will get through this. We have gotten through much tougher issues than this. And when we get through it, we're all still going to be together. We're still going to be responsible for the safety of the city of Los Angeles, and we're still going to be responsible for each other. So remember that above all other things. We can disagree respectfully. The negotiations need to continue. We need to find a medium where we meet. We need all of those things, but we have to do it the right way. And we have to maintain the one thing that makes this police department special, and that is the trust of the public. And you do that in every contact, and you do that in the way that you behave while we see respectful disagreement. The other thing I put forward that I want to put forward to you is this negotiation has nothing to do with your value. You are the best cops in the nation, maybe the best cops in the world. I would love to see you compensated in a way that reflected that. But the reality is that the city can only do so much, and that is what must be negotiated. And you have to realize that. You have to realize that this is not about the value that I or the city place on you. Your worth is beyond measure to me. Now, I hope that we can reflect that, but we need to do it in a way that brings credit to the organization, in a way that makes us stay the most valued piece of city government. And with that, I'll do a quick report on crime, as is my normal beginning at police commission meetings. Homicides are down in the city of Los Angeles a little over 8%. That's 12 fewer than last year, 17% down compared to 2002. Robberies are down almost 5%. Aggravated assaults are up about 12%. It gives us a violent crime picture for the first half of 2014 of 3.6% increase. Property crime is down in all four categories. Total property crime is down about 7.2%. The aggregate makes up Part 1 crime. That's down a little over 5% for the year and 9% compared to 2012. Number of victims shot is down in the city about 8%. Number of shots fired down 14. Part 1 crime is down in all four of our bureaus. Gang-related crime is down a total of 15%, with gang-related homicide down 14%. Officer-involved shootings are also down 14 this year as compared to 25 at this time last year. Traffic collisions are up 1% in the city. Those that are DUI related are down 12.7%. Those that are hit and run related are down just under 8%. Motor vehicle versus pedestrians are down 3.3%, and bicycle involved traffic accidents are down 15%. We have 9,897 sworn personnel on payroll, 2,759 civilian personnel, 268 level 1 reserves, 21 level 2s, 134 level 3s, 372 specialists, and 64 chaplain counselors, and we have 5,160 young men and women in our cadet corps. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. We do have one public comment card. We have Mr. Herman.
Good morning. Behind the scene of many of your statistics and data, it's very somewhat true and not true. We know that the LA Times and those that report the situations of crime, burglary, and the hit and run capital of the world, we Los Angeles, are untrue. Just this past weekend, we had a young woman hit in Sherman Oaks in a very affluent neighborhood. So I say to you, and to this report, that there needs to be more transparency, consistency, and adequacy when we're making reports before the public. I particularly live in Boyle Heights, and I know it's not a safe area. I don't live in Boyle Heights, but now I live throughout Los Angeles. I was a homeless gentleman, thanks to Los Angeles City. So I have no intimidation or fear of what our fellow constituents are dealing with. On a perspective, we all go through the same scenarios of racial profiling and discrimination. So I'm speaking on behalf of many constituents, those of us in Los Angeles who reside here and live here, and understand the real politics of how local government and how local policing should work and provide us adequate protection. So again, I say to you, let us not become the hit and run capital of Sherman Oaks or in Boyle Heights. And besides, what is the number count of officers behind the desk? Shouldn't they be out in the field, whether it's on foot patrol or bike patrol, to control the environment of the socialism that we all go through on a day-to-day basis? And in regards to the incident with the highway patrol, are we safe? Time's still gone, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. As I continue to point out, the incident regarding the highway patrol, that was no incident. That was an uncontrolled problem. Today, many of our vets and people who are mentally impaired are suffering the consequences of the interaction, the social actions of what you as
Thank you.
a
Your time is
protective
up.
service should do to protect us. Thank you.
Item number 3, the report of the Executive Director, Mr. Tifank.
Good morning, Madam Vice President, members of the Commission. One brief item on the consent agenda, item 7A, the Chief's Travel Authority should be removed from the agenda. The Chief canceled his travel and did not leave the city, so therefore it does not need to be approved. And also, again, for the general public, we apologize for the inconvenience, but clearly we have to manage the room based on the fire marshal and the capacity of the room. So also for the department staff, if you have an item on the agenda, when that item is concluded, if you would please leave the room so we can let someone from the hallway come into the room if that's the only item you're here for. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. And we do have one public comment card. We have Mr. Herman. Mr. Herman.
For the record, I'm not sure if your clock is working right or not, but it's a little time excuse. But I just want to bring to the attention of the report of the Executive Director for pending projects or routine administrative matters. I filed a CF report under CF number 14/001646 on June 4th, 2014. I am puzzled by how the administration of IAs are handled, and I wish to furthermore ask that there be an audit or an investigation to expedite what are considered serious and unpotential unseriousness. When I was grabbed at City Hall by the Sergeant of Arms, I didn't find that entertaining or amusing. I found it discriminating. I found it racially motivated towards me, an individual, civilian. And so I speak out candidly and boldly because, again, this investigation, whether it's from this department of LAPD or not, or the Inspector General or the FBI, I just say handle with care, because we're all watching. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4, the report of the Inspector General, Mr. Bustamante.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Commissioners, I have nothing to report.
Okay, we
Thank you.
do have one public comment card on this item. Mr. Herman?
I would like to point this out to Mr. Bustamante, Inspector General, how we show force and what to show force, what is acceptable and unacceptable. What is unjustified use of force for the appropriate investigation and reviewing the entire incidents of concurrences of police brutality towards people who are mentally, physically, and emotionally injured by officers, whether it's a highway patrol or LAPD. The incident and conduct of a full investigation of the savagery attack, whether it's a minority African American woman or a minority from Boyle Heights. I say to you, bullying and threats are unacceptable in Los Angeles. And I say we would all see that this is a behavior that's unacceptable. Why is this justification of Highway Patrol, LAPD, illegal use of force towards people who may not have the capacity and the cognitivity? Not all of us are mental, not all of us are genius, but we do have a format to go by. So I say, to the extent of this injury or injuries to come, I say decease and hold. For I was a victim by a sergeant of arms, and I did not like it. So I say in the future, please conduct the investigations not just thoroughly, but entirely for the public interest, for the welfare of the public, and more so because public interest fears the actions of this course of the police department when it investigates and possibly harms people emotionally, and we become the victims of police brutality. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 5 consists of information items and filed items relative to noise variances and special event permits submitted for the period ending July 11, 2014. Item number 6, presentations. Do we have any presentations?
None today.
Thank you. Item number 7 is consent agenda items. These items are considered to be routine and non-controversial, upon which the board is provided with adequate information for approval without inquiry or discussion. Would a commissioner wish to pull an item as special for discussion, 7B through 7H?
I'll move to approve 7B through 7H.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 8, regular agenda items. Would a commissioner wish to pull an item as special for discussion, 8A through 8K?
Yes, I'd like to pull items 8A. Let's see, 8I. 8J and 8K.
Their motion.
Sandra?
No,
Second.
no, is there a
No, I
motion?
think- are there
You have to make a motion.
And move to approve items 8, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and H.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Approved. Thank you. We'll begin with item number 8A, Department's report dated July 10th, 2014, relative to the modified policy and procedures for immigrations and customs enforcement detainer requests.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Madam Vice President, Commissioners. Assistant Chief Michael Moore, Office of Special Operations.
I'm here to provide information relative to the report that you have before you on the modified procedure and policy for immigration and custom enforcement detainer requests. You have that report, and as stated within the report, recent court decisions have raised constitutional concerns relative to detention orders or requests that local law enforcement are regularly given by ICE. Based on our review and in conjunction with the Office of the City Attorney, we believe that those rulings raise constitutional issues as to the merits or ability of the department to continue to honor those detainers. So effective immediately, pending further clarification by the court, the department has determined to no longer honor those detainer requests unless one of two conditions exists, that being the judicial determination of probable cause or a warrant by a judicial officer. As stated in the report, we've provided this information to our personnel in jail division as to the mechanics of how this works. Detainer requests, as this commission is well aware, are issued by ICE relative to our arrestees on occasion, and pending any further clarification by the court and subject to the review and approval by this board, the department will not honor those going forward, absent, again, one of those two conditions. Secondly, we've also implemented a revision to the mechanism in which we monitor the frequency in which ICE makes inquiries or responds to jail facilities to interview an arrestee. And we'll provide information periodically to this board relative to the occurrences or the frequency of those interactions. And I'm available to answer any questions this board might have.
Thanks, Chief. I thought it was important to give or provide the oral overview of what this policy related to and the background. Do you foresee any other circumstances under which detainers might be honored once an advisory comes from the city?
Well, we've received we've been in conversations with the Office of City Attorney, and we have their information relative to this earlier decision. As mentioned, we see no further change at this point other than what's been described here. Should there be an additional court decision or other information that's unknown to the department, certainly we would evaluate that at that time. As the Commission is aware, the department has began modifying its interactions with ICE as to detainer requests in January of 2013. That was our first effort. And then, of course, with the implementation of the Trust Act this year, made further modifications. This is our latest adjustment or modification. And again, it's all based on what we know, the information we have at the time which we're making these decisions.
And in light of this new policy, have there been any requests from ICE for detainers since this was put in place? I mean, I know it's only been a week and a half.
Yes, ICE detainer requests continue to be provided to the department, and the department in each instance is responding back to ICE with a denial to this point, as none of them have met any of the, either of the two required conditions. And our response back to ICE, it is a direct response in the sense of that it is being denied on the basis of the fact that it has neither a warrant from a judicial officer nor a judicial determination of probable cause. No other information is provided to ICE in that response.
Would it be possible to receive an update in maybe a few months regarding how many detainer requests have come through and how many have been honored?
Absolutely. The current process today, the Chief of Police, as well as myself and the chain of command within my office, is notified each day as to the number of requests and also the decision being made on those requests. So it's a simple tally that we'll be happy to provide the Commission.
Okay, great. I don't have any further questions.
I move that we approve item 8A.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to item 8I, Department's report dated July 6, 2014, relative to the fleet repairs and maintenance audit.
Morning. Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Police Performance Auditor Jeffrey Phillips with the Internal Audit Inspections Division.
Assistant Chief Sandy Jo MacArthur, Office of Administrative Services.
Commissioners, before you have the Fleet Repairs and Maintenance Audit. This audit falls under the Motor Transport Division, and it was the first audit that Internal Audits and Inspections Division has conducted looking at fleet repairs and maintenance. I certainly want to thank Motor Transport Division for their openness and helping us out in getting the information that we needed to get in order to conduct the audit. There was a total of 4 objectives, as you can see on table number 1. There was a total of 4 objectives that were developed and 15 tests that were conducted. These objectives were developed in collaboration with Motor Transport Division because the commanding officer had some areas wherein he wanted to see how it is that they were performing. So they did provide us some insight as to some areas that they wanted us to take a look. If you take a look at the results column, you'll see some percentages and numbers. And you'll also see indication of performance information. That performance information, in essence, is things where Motor Transport Division will go ahead and benchmark themselves or out of best practices because there isn't a solid policy on how to do something. So they'll go ahead and develop the best way and some guidelines. And that's in essence what that means. Overwhelmingly, Motor Transport Division did really well with all the objectives. There was a couple objectives that would be indicative of room for improvement, and that was Objective 1D and Objective 4D. Now, the commanding officer did provide a response, and it should be attached to the report before you. And the indication is that there's newer technology that they're currently looking at that would address both of these shortfalls. And in essence, that technology will either improve performance or would actually do away with the process. So that concludes my my presentation, but we'll entertain any questions you may have.
Well, since this is the first audit that we've seen, well, it's the first audit that as you said, that has been
Yes, ma'am.
Done for the fleet repairs and maintenance. So I thought it would be helpful for us to understand the background and the purpose. I just have one question. Were there any other areas in which technology was an issue? Were there any other areas discovered in the audit in which technology was an issue?
Not to my knowledge. The fleet maintenance system is one that seems to be a little outdated, but my understanding is that the city is working on a new system citywide that would also be utilized by Motor Transport Division.
And that was going to be my comment. That's probably the most antiquated system that they're dealing with over there, and we are on a citywide basis working so that the fleet maintenance will impact all city departments. And we're in the process of updating that, or at least putting out for RFP to get that all updated.
I have one question about the calibration of the speedometers, which is the only category that wasn't 90% or better. So is there any consequence of not being able to do the semi-annual calibration? And I got the issue around the resources, but is there any fallout?
There has not been any fallout to date. We're looking at all of the newer part of our fleets because the calibration is all now done in technology-driven, and our policies is one of the things, and that falls on me. I should have been looking at the policy shift. We probably need to amend the policy right now, which I'm asking PRD to go ahead and pull so that it can be consistent with today's technology. That policy is 30-plus years old, but we have not found any fallout as a result. And as was briefly mentioned in the report, our priority is fleet safety at this point, and since we had lost so many individuals over there over the last 5 years, the calibration piece became secondary because the newer cars self-calibrate. We're working with our different Ford and the different entities, Chevrolet, to be able to get some documentation, but we have not seen any fallout year to date.
Great.
I'll move to approve item 8J, or I'm sorry, 8I.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are now on item 8J, Department's Report dated July 7, 2014, relative to the bomb squad inspection, IAID number 14-035.
Commissioners, so before you have the bomb squad inspection, you may recall that earlier this year, the bomb squad audit was presented before you. And in that audit, there were some areas for improvement that primarily dealt with the bomb squad changing their SOPs, or standard operating procedures, to something that both reflected good internal controls and the reality of their operations. And so they actually moved pretty quickly in rewriting those SOPs, and we went back and conducted an inspection specifically of those recommendations within the bomb squad audit. Just to, we had communication with bomb squad, and when they told us that they had implemented everything, we just went in there and conducted inspection just to, in essence, double check and determine whether those recommendations had in fact been implemented. And in essence, the conclusion is that all of the recommendations had in fact been implemented.
Thanks. This is an audit that came in front of us, and it seems like it was very efficiently implemented, those recommendations. So thanks for your efforts, and thanks for providing an overview.
Absolutely.
That's why I called the issue.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Move to approve item 8J.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are now on item 8K, Department's
Thank you.
Report
Thank you.
dated July 7, 2014, relative to the Asset Forfeiture Revenue Inspection Follow-up, IAID number 14-036.
Commissioners, this too is an inspection, asset forfeiture revenue inspection. This was the asset forfeiture revenue audit that was conducted in 2012, and it too had some recommendations in it that we went ahead and focused just on those recommendations to determine the status, and saw that they also implemented the recommendations. And so we conclude that those recommendations should be closed.
Okay. I don't have any questions. I also just wanted to congratulate the department on implementing so effectively the recommendations that came from the.
We will relay the message to Gang Narcotics Division.
Okay,
I would like to
great.
echo that, because I think, I'm not sure that any of us had the expectation that they would be implemented so quickly and thoroughly, and then with an audit that it's all verified, so thank you.
Yes.
Thank you to the department.
Move to approve item 8K.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now on item number 9, public comment period. We have 11 comment cards. The first 3 are Tyler Eisen, President of Los Angeles Police Protective League, Joretta Sandos, and Mark Cronin.
Get you to hand those out. Good morning, members of the commission.
Good morning.
Tyler Eisen, Los Angeles Police Protective League. As you've already heard, after 4 days of ratification meetings, 5,823 Los Angeles police officers voted, and by majority rule, rejected the proposed one-year contract offered by the City of Los Angeles. The League spent over 5 months at the negotiation table with the city and department, and ultimately presented the best offer available to our membership for ratification. We met with the mayor, we met with city council members, we met with everyone we thought could assist us in securing a fair contract. When it was apparent we had the best contract offer that we could obtain, we scheduled ratification meetings all over the city to meet with our membership and to obtain their vote to ratify the tentative agreement. What we found was a body of officers that did not feel supported or respected by either the department or the city. Our officers felt the lack of a raise was a slap in the face because there was not even an attempt to bring them up to the pay levels of other Southern California law enforcement agencies whose pay is better than ours. This was not greed. This was the frustration of knowing that although you are among the best in your calling, you are paid among the least. Raising the starting pay does not give most of the officers any benefit. They realize that the LAPD cannot fill academy classes because starting pay is so low, but fixing that problem, which needs to be fixed, does not help our members pay their bills. Finally, there's a discipline system that is terribly inconsistent. Our officers expect to be held accountable for their behavior, but there is no confidence in a system viewed as inconsistent, unfair, and riddled with favoritism. Our cops just don't feel safe doing their jobs. That's an overview of the feelings expressed as our members denounce the contract offer. And I'll leave you with this. Actions speak louder than words. Saying that you value us doesn't make it so. Thank you.
Jaretta Sanchez.
Good morning. Good morning, and thank you to all LAPD officers that are here today. Negotiations were over before it started. For a mayor to say, we have no money, $8 billion budget, but no money was budgeted for raises, $15 million in overtime. Where's the value? You know, you could say that we're valued as police officers, work the streets every single day, put our lives on the line every single day. And to have a contract that was over before it started, it's not right. LAPD officers, they were here for the city. When the city was in financial issues, problems, it was us, the LAPD officers, who gave up everything. We gave up $100 million in overtime and other concessions as well. But we thought that this city would pay us back. We were naive. We thought that after giving up everything, this city would say, thank you, LAPD officer. Instead, slap right in the face. It's the truth. Not blaming you, Chief, but this city has to do better. You cannot look at LAPD officers and tell them we have no money. Because you know why? Look downtown. Look at all these buildings coming up downtown. This city is rolling. And to tell a LAPD officer that you have no money to give them any raises is not true. Because if we're valued, you please treat us like we're valued. During this contract negotiation, there was a sunset clause in the MOU that stated very clearly June 30th, 2014, that the waiver of cash overtime would end and that anyone over 150 hours in their bank would immediately be eligible for cash. That's what the MOU states. It's black and white. There was also a sunset clause that indicated that the department could no longer force officers home. But as June 30th approached and we were in that last couple hours of negotiation, we knew we weren't getting a raise.
2 minutes.
But if I could bring cash overtime to these officers who have not had cash overtime in 5 years, give us that opportunity.
Sorry,
Don't
your
tell
time
us
is
that
up.
the MOU
Your time is up.
contract said that we
Excuse
can't
me.
have that. I'm sorry, I'll come back up, guys.
And the next speaker, Mark Cronin, followed by Peter Repovich.
What is a ghost car? Deploying officers who aren't actually working on the street, but giving the statistical impression that an area has sufficient resources when in fact they do not. The bad thing about ghost cars is that when you are in the field and broadcast, officer needs help because you're in serious danger, Casper never shows up. If the inevitable occurs, it is customary for divisions to rob Peter to pay Paul, leaving surrounding divisions now depleted. Sworn personnel are just crossing their fingers that there aren't multiple incidents in different areas requiring resources that don't exist. Officer safety should be the priority, and sworn personnel have suffered enough loss, especially this year. Failure to solve the overtime problem ultimately is an officer safety issue. Roll calls are decimated by the numbers of officers who must stay home because their overtime banks are too high. Pressure on watch commanders to provide coverage with inadequate numbers of officers to meet the demand end up enforcing them to generate creative ways to make it appear like minimum standards are being met. It is not the watch commander's fault. This should never be a bargained issue. It is the mismanagement of allocated assets that is at fault, and that occurs at a much higher level. It is smoke and mirrors. Officers only know that they are out there with insufficient units to do the job. There's also a shortage of supervisors in the field for the same reason. This continues to be a recipe for disaster that needs to be fixed now.
Thank you.
Peter Repovich.
I'd like to thank the membership that came out here today. Thank you for listening to us. Police officers who work overtime need to be compensated and be paid like every other city police department in the nation. Engaging in the business and sending home officers as a method of payment needs to stop. Forced time off hurts the people of Los Angeles, hurts the deployment ability of the department, and contributes to the unfunded liability that the financial world shakes their head at. I know the City of Los Angeles policymakers do things in a different manner sometimes, but not paying our officers who come to work and are required to work overtime and are then sent home to burn that time so that officers don't receive compensation, cash, is unacceptable, extremely disrespectful, and demeaning. To make it worse than not paying them, our officers have been ordered continually to burn time, and when they do so, take time off at the convenience of the department rather than enjoying some time at the discretion of the officer and potentially his or her family. The city just needs to compensate for the hours worked and end the credit card approach to compensation for police officers. They deserve better. Forced time off and the department's insistence to not compensate regularly has brought much resentment among our members and has pushed our officers to consider other employment. With all due respect, I ask the City of Los Angeles to take responsibility for paying for our officers for the heroic work that they do every single day. With frustration, it seems all too often the Los Angeles Police Protective League, when attempting to address any issues of control, power, or working condition, is met with a swift resistance and dismissal. I would ask this policy body, the Police Commission, to address the lack of respect that our officers endure daily by reviewing the overtime compensation issue, the disciplinary system, the lack of COLA-based pay to be competitive with neighboring agencies, and the
Thank you,
general
sir.
working conditions that manifest the disrespect our officers feel on a regular basis. I ask that
Thank you.
going
Your time is
forward,
up,
that
sir.
our officers be treated with honor and respect.
time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next three speakers are Lou Turiaga, Adolf Adolf Rodriguez, and Craig Lawley. Oh, jeez.
Good morning.
Morning.
I will give you an overview of what we experienced in those 16 ratification meetings we had with almost 6,000 officers, and my fellow directors will have more specific comments. By the way, in my time on the job and in the memory of those with more time on than me, there has never been a response of as many members as this to a contract ratification. What I was exposed to was a deep-seated frustration and anger in our officers. We had obtained some benefits in the proposed contract for them, but there was no cost of living increase adjustment. The level of opposition and the emotion and the opposition to the terms presented to them convinced me that there were more problems in the ranks than could be fixed, even with money. There are root problems that need to be solved as well as economic problems. There is a deep distrust of both management and of the city. We heard over and over again that it doesn't matter what the agreement is, quote, they will do whatever they want to do. We assured them that we would sue, but everyone knows that this is time-consuming and expensive. The point is that there's a trust problem. Officers feel alienated from management and the city. They do not feel like partners. Somehow the feeling that we are all united in a mission must be restored.
Thank you.
Madam Vice President, thank you very much. And the name is Adolf Rodriguez. Every officer knows that the department has to investigate misconduct and come up with a resolution to any of the allegations. However, every officer also expects a fair appeal process if the officer disagrees with the department's conclusion. Our members' opinion of the fairness of the appeal process is at an all-time low. Even commanding officers are complaining that the system is unfair. Two Board of Rights members have filed separate lawsuits alleging that they were retaliated against for failing to follow the chief's direction to terminate officers at Boards of Rights. Both thought, as well they should, that they were supposed to use their independent judgment in deciding the Boards of Rights cases. This is just one example of why our officers feel that the system is rigged against them. The League has also repeatedly had to go to court in an attempt to obtain documents that the department refuses to provide during the discovery process and hearings. During our most recent MOU contract negotiations, we presented what amounted to a revamping of the administrative appeal process to make it more transparent and fair. Virtually every suggestion was rejected by the department. In the last hours of negotiation, the city negotiators accepted our request to revise the discovery rules. We relied on this and voted to present the tentative contract to the membership. However, after that agreement with the city, the chief of police pulled the agreement out from under us at the last minute. Today, the appeal process remains substantially the same, which for our members is unacceptable. All of our officers would like to believe that as long as they are doing what they believe is the right thing, the department will either support them or train them in a better way to complete their jobs. But that is not the consensus. Today, almost 90% of our members pay an extra fee to participate in a legal plan that will protect them from LAPD management. There exists no confidence that there will be fair treatment by command staff officers, making a program of this type, unfortunately, necessary and essential.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Morning.
Morning.
For the first 15 years of my career, I used to trivialize the discipline system as unfair and a double standard. Now, after hearing the horror stories over the last 34 years, and especially being a director for the last 2 years, I've now come to the conclusion that this is a fraudulent system. During the last contract negotiations, the League attempted to change some of the inherent problems with their discipline system. At every turn, the answer was no, hell no, with no response. I'm requesting the Office of Inspector General to work with our board in an attempt to fix this fraudulent system. I will bring numerous examples forward to the Inspector General, highlighting some of the tragic stories due to this inherently unfair and biased system. Members of the Commission, we brought to you our concerns today because you are head of the Los Angeles Police Department. Not only are you charged with making sure the citizens are being treated fairly, you're also charged with making sure the officers are being treated fairly. And it's under that duty we are requesting your assistance to help solve the problems of our membership. Thank you.
Okay, the next two speakers are John Janelle, followed by Mr. Herman.
Good morning. Honorable Board of Police Commissioners, Mr. Bustamante and Chief Beck. I came in from vacation because I wanted to express a few points. The first being your policies and strategies and the execution by the members of the League have resulted in great crime reduction numbers. We are the law enforcement agency of the world. We're very proud of that fact. We just believe we deserve more than a zero. And I would ask that in your position, with our cultural change, metamorphosis I've seen in my 30 years, with the overcoming of the consent decree and the leadership of the department, that we should be paid equitable with the other agencies in Southern California. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning again. And for the record, as a civil rights activist, as I and Mr. Hutchinson and another group of people spoke in City Hall last week, 2 weeks ago, we're referring back to the civil rights of what our police need. Yes, they need raises. They need compensation. However, at a time when our public officials, this administration, LAPD, and that of our city have neglected unequal treatment to our fine, good officers to have compensation is a disgrace. A disgrace for the reason that, Ms. Speaker, I'm sure you understand why. Because our public officials at the city level have abused the taxpayers by saying they have this account. When they turn it around and put it in this account, it's a recycle business. But we, the taxpayers, are upset and dislike the action of those administrators at City Hall, our councilmen. And then pointing back to our chief of police. You knew about the problem of this compensation, how to adjust the budget, and if not, you should have created something of a recommendation at the time before the city paid its elected officials $200,000 on who? The taxpayers. We, the public, folks. We, the public, pay. So the breakdown comes at a time of an economic crisis where the city does not have the money to compensate you officers, you men and women who serve us, the public, and we who serve the United States of America as what? Constituents. So what is the value? Their compensation? Or how are we going to budget the crisis of the economic meltdown at City Hall and within this department? Again, MOU is a bitch, bitch, bitch. And I'm bitching about it because, again, we, the civilians, want
Your time is up.
compensation to protect us. Thank you.
And the final two comment cards are Dave Nunez and Jabral Mohammed.
I know I have 2 minutes, but I'm going to cede my 2 minutes to Joretta Santos so she can finish.
No.
Should be given afforded time.
That's not the way it works.
Doesn't? Okay, then I'll go.
Excuse me. Let me just say that the president of the league submitted comments, so we do have the comments even if you weren't able to complete your statement.
Thank you very much. Today, it's not about me or any individual of how I feel regarding a certain person shouldn't get in a second term. But it's about the sacrifices of the men and women known as the rank and file. As we know, we are the first responders. Back in December 9, there was an active shooting situation in Hollywood. There was an off-duty motor officer and a detective who was in the area, who was on duty. Shots were fired. The off-duty motor officer began to move in the direction of the sound. And at one point, he ran into a citizen, and he said, "Call 911. I need help." And then the citizen replied, "You're a police officer. You're in uniform." But he was off duty. He could have turned around and gone the other way, but instead, he responded to that call for help from the Angelinos. And he met up with that detective as they began to move on the armed gunmen. They both have military backgrounds. They both utilize their military training to respond to this issue and address the situation. But as that motor officer was responding, he realized he didn't have a radio, and he said, "Oh my God, I'm going to get dinged for this." That's the environment that we have. But anyway, they responded to the scene, and they put the suspect down. Later on, Eric Garcetti, who was the consummate officer of that area, embraced our motor officer and said, "You saved our city millions, millions. And on national TV, you proved that the LAPD doesn't run from fire, it goes into the fire." And now the rank and file and the league are asking that they be treated with respect and dignity and be compensated just like any other Southern California department from the 510 paying law enforcement, that we get the right pay. Now, we're at this level. Look at us. The whole room is filled, and so is outside, of officers who want
Sir, your
this
time is
police
up.
commission to do the right thing and support us, and also the chief to support us, just like Brad
Nunez.
did at city council when he said, "Give these officers
Yes.
a raise."
Thank
Okay,
you.
you're asking for respect. How about giving it? Your
I
time
will,
is up.
sir. I will. I will give the respect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Jabral Mohammed.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Chief, Mr. T. Frank, Alexander. My reasons for being here is, and I'm glad everyone's here. I want everybody to take a self-evaluation, okay? Because we don't get a chance to meet together like this. I'm Bismillah of the Justice Movement. This is Jabril Muhammad, for Bismillah, the justice movement. And our effort pretty much is to represent the people, the public. Now, we just had an incident on the freeway. Okay. Was this a good cop or was it a bad cop? I need a list of people who approve of that conduct and disapprove of that conduct. The public needs a report. They need to hear from the chief or all other law enforcement agencies that they disapprove of said conduct. But that's very difficult to, how can I say, account when you look at the conduct of the Los Angeles Police Department, when you think in terms of excessive force, when you think in terms of victims of violent crimes, and when you think in terms of the complaints filed, and none of them address, all of them vindicate the officers involved. So you guys are asking for pay, incentives, and for that to be addressed. However, you know, the public is disgruntled in terms of the conduct. So I'm curious as to what are we going to do to be deserving of such raises? What are we going to do to be deserving of the taxpayers' money going to the law enforcement agencies who tend to disregard their responsibilities when the public is concerned, the public safety is concerned, as we saw, as we viewed on the
Thank you, sir. Your time is
freeways
up.
or whatever. So let's pay attention to that, the
Your time is up,
self-evaluation.
Mr. Mohammed.
We're being crippled
Thank you.
by corruption.
Okay, we are now on item, that is our last comment card. We are now on item 10, closed session. The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss items number 10A, B, and C in accordance with Government Code 54957.
Before we adjourn, the chief would like to make a few comments.
You know, I'm not responding to any of the public comment because that's against the rules, but I do want to follow up on a comment that I made initially. I asked all the men and women of the Los Angeles Police Department that are here to be respectful and professional, and you were, and I want to thank you for that. Thank you.
The commission thanks you also.